Hey, it's Maridela Siethoff coming to you live from Motivation Nation. I wanted to talk a little bit today about sugar. In our free 7-day group, we are starting with nutrition, of course. Nutrition is the cornerstone, the keystone of your health and wellness. And one of the major tenets around eating clean is removing all additional sugar and artificial sugar from your diet. Yes, this can be extremely challenging because, in case you haven't noticed, sugar is addictive. How many people out there are addicted to sugar? Me. How many people, if you have some sugar, you want more sugar? You can't just have one chip. You can't just have one cookie. You've got to have the entire sleeve. You can't just have one little scoop of ice cream. You want to have multiple scoops. This is how sugar is designed. Research actually shows that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And even though sugar is not a drug like cocaine is classified, it definitely has pretty severe effects on your body. Hi, Angie. Yeah, I know. Sugar is a big one. And we start eating sugar at least the last few generations, human generations, like my kids too, we start getting introduced to sugar very early in life because it is included in all packaged foods. So I do want to make a distinction before I go on. Naturally occurring sugar that you get in fruit is okay if you have it in moderation. What I'm talking about is the additional sugar that you find in sweets, treats, candies, packaged goods, cereals, granola, all the foods that are manufactured in our modern day society to provide us conveniences. The reason why it's put in there is because it tastes good and it makes that packaged product taste better. Now, if let's talk about artificial sugar. So that one is also a very slippery slope because a lot of people think, well, I'm going to have artificial sugar and it's going to help my diet because it's not going to mess up my metabolism and all that stuff. And it's low cal and, I'm trying to lose weight. Artificial sugar, in my opinion, is actually worse than natural occurring sugar. And we'll get into some of that a little bit later on. Okay, so back to sugar and clean eating. And if you're addicted, so this is what the hard part is about sugar is in order to cut off the addiction and not overeat it is you have to actually remove it completely from your diet. And this is what gets really tricky for some people because oftentimes we're very, because of the conveniences of cereals and granola bars and power bars and on the go and blah, 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 and snack. People, we like to snack all the time on the go. We're in the car, we're in our offices, we're multitasking, we're, driving and eating, or we're taking a call and eating. So it's a little bit of how our society has been, functioning over many years and as far as like eating. You try to fit eating in where you can versus it actually being a main activity and fitting yourself around your meal. So why is sugar so addictive and what does it do to you? I think we already talked about why it's addictive. I mean, it's designed to be addictive. But what it does to you is sugar actually, when it gets metabolized, is basically another form of a carbohydrate, which then if you have too many carbohydrates gets stored as fat. So that's the simple equation right there. Now let's talk about artificial sugar and why artificial sugar is so dangerous and why I believe, just from what I know, and I'm not a medical expert or anything like that, but just from what I've been reading and learning, artificial sugar can be more dangerous than regular like table sugar or whatever sugar cane is because the artificial sugar is not naturally occurring. It is a man-made compound. So oftentimes our body cannot recognize the molecular components of artificial sugar. The reason why this is dangerous is when your body doesn't recognize the molecules that are passing through the system, it doesn't know what to do with it. So it can't digest it. It can't, get rid of it. So what it does is it stores those components that it does not recognize in your body. And oftentimes it gets stored in your organs. This is why it's dangerous for your liver and your kidney, which, have a detoxifying function for your body. The artificial sugar molecules that are not recognized get stored in those organs. That's why it's dangerous, because if you have a buildup of that, you basically have a foreign body sitting in your body that your system doesn't know what to do with. So without getting into all the science and all the nitty-gritty of the chemistry, let's just suffice it to say that it probably makes sense to not have things that your body doesn't recognize in your body, because it will only wreak havoc. And by having those unidentifiable compounds just sitting around, they're sitting in your cells, and somehow they have to be used, or they're just sitting there wreaking havoc. So that's why, in my opinion, it's dangerous. Not that it turns into fat or anything that, will make you gain weight. I just think that having things that are artificial in your body that could change the way your cells are going through its processes is probably not a good thing. Okay, so that's my little soapbox about artificial sugar, why that is so dangerous. Okay, so back to clean eating and cutting off that addiction. Clean eating basically means you remove all sugar, period, all artificial sugar, period. What does that mean? That means you can't have what we traditionally know as junk food, which totally makes sense if you're trying to be healthy and lose weight and lose fat specifically. You don't want to be eating junk food. You shouldn't be eating cookies and ice cream and muffins and candy and all that stuff. But what really then, which for most people is probably, that totally makes sense. And even though you might still be addicted, that seems like those are easy things to get rid of. Like, okay, you want to lose weight, you're not going to walk around eating candy every hour. But I think where it becomes a little bit harder is removing products that we use in our everyday life, in our conveniences, in the way we cook and how we prepare food. So let's talk about where some of that hidden sugar lies. Let's think about condiments. Okay, we love condiments. Actually, we need condiments. Otherwise, our food will probably taste pretty bland. People like ketchup. Guess what? Sugar is in ketchup. If you read labels and you just buy your traditional ketchup, take a look at the label. There's going to be sugar in there. Another place that is really surprising is like spaghetti sauce or a marinara sauce. Any sauce that you would put on rice or pasta has sugar in it. Take a look at like your favorite pasta sauce. There's a significant amount of sugar in there. Breads. So that's a dangerous combination. Carbohydrates and sugar. That can be dangerous as well, because you're just compounding that effect, since sugar turns into carbohydrates. So you're giving your body like an overdose of carbohydrates that it needs to process, which, as I said, if you have too many carbohydrates, that turns into fat. Sugar is found like in cereal. Take a look at any cereal box, even the healthy ones. There's a significant amount of sugar. And this is additional sugar, because wheat and some of the other ingredients that are in processed foods don't necessarily have sugar. So this is additional sugar being added by the food manufacturer in order for it to taste good and to make you addicted. Granola bars. People oftentimes, use bars and that type of stuff kind of like as on the go. Well, there's a significant amount of artificial sugars and additional sugars in granola bars. So it's a really slippery slope. Some things are really easy to take out because they're obvious, and other things, it's a little bit more complicated because sugar is lurking in all of these places. So what you need to do as an educated consumer and somebody who is trying to be healthy is you basically have to read packages. If you need to rely on packaged foods in some way, shape, or form, my advice to you would be to scrutinize those labels. And not only look at the sugar content. I mean, a lot of us look, we've been trained, look at the carbs, look at the calories, look at the fat. Actually, where you should be looking at, in my personal opinion, and this is what I do, while looking at all the labels is important, the places that I key into is what the sugar content is, and more importantly, the ingredients. And if you can't read or you don't know what the ingredient is, then you may not want to eat it. At least that's my rule of thumb if I'm looking at a packaged item. Know what those ingredients are and make a conscious decision as to whether or not you want to be eating the food or the ingredients that's in that food coming out of the package. So packaged foods, I think, is difficult. Like I said, a lot of people, here's another one. A lot of people think having like the granola, or not the granola, but the oatmeal that comes like in the little bowls, and everybody says, oh, you should have oatmeal because it's whole grains and it's going to help you. Actually, take a look at the sugar content in those little babies, because that can be quite high as well. So how do you start removing some of these things? Obviously, you have to remove the food source altogether. But then what you need to start doing in a very conscious, judicial manner is start substituting healthier items that don't have sugar in its place. So this is where you start leaning on the veggies and fruits and lean protein, the right types of oils, the right types of nuts and seeds to give you those healthy fats that your body needs. So basically, if you're going to go with clean eating and you're removing sugar and artificial sugar, you're removing all the packaged goods and you're starting to eat more whole foods, foods that were meant to be eaten fresh. And then another thing you need to start doing is preparing food on your own. This takes some time. However, I believe the time investment is totally worth it. If you plan out your meals, and you don't have to go gangbuster and, cook every single meal from scratch all day long. Like that's what my grandmother did. But, nobody really has that type of time anymore. Even if you're not working outside of the home, it's quite time consuming. So it's a good idea to plan out your meals. What I do is we have, like, from the whole family perspective, we kind of have a bunch of recipes that I know that the whole family will eat. And I just kind of rotate through them, and every once in a while I find new recipes. But definitely have some recipes that you can lean on as your staples, things that work for you, things that you usually have on hand, ingredients that you have on hand that you can make quickly or that you can have leftovers with. Like I usually double and triple batch my meal so that we can continue eating off of it the next day or have lunch the following day or reheat it for dinner. So at least you get a couple meals out of it. So those are just some of my tips. Angie, I know that you're addicted to sugar. I'd love to hear what the addiction actually is, and anybody else I see a couple of other people that have also joined. I would love for you to say hi and post down below what your sugar addiction is. For me, early on, it wasn't so much like the pure sugar. I'm not a big candy eater, but chocolate is kind of like my downfall. So one way of working that I found working around chocolate is, obviously through my journey, I don't have it every day, but when I do have it as a treat, I look for free trade, organic, and dark chocolate, the darkest chocolate I can find. And it's usually 70 to 80% cacao that is, considered a little bit more healthy for you. And it's very bitter, but that's fine with me because actually what I figured out, what I like about chocolate is not necessarily the sugar part of it, but I actually like the bitter chocolate taste of it. So it was actually a good thing that I had that discovery because it wasn't like the milk chocolate or the dark or the white chocolate that I really like. I kind of like the dark chocolate the best. Anyway, please post down below what's your sugar addiction and what is your way of getting around it. I can't wait to hear from you guys, and have a great day, and we'll talk soon again. Bye.